Has anyone noticed the irony about phones these days? It's easier to make a phone call than to schlep to see someone in person. Even still, it's easier to send a text than to make a phone call and have to engage in all the pleasantries of a conversation. And wait for it, firing off an email is even easier because we don't have to communicate in real time. There's no risk of a conversation at all. So technology that we created to improve human interaction, making it possible to reach someone when they could not otherwise be reached, has become the substitute for human interaction. And I speak from personal experience. Just a couple of weeks ago, I celebrated my birthday. Not one person called me this year. Not one person. I'm not blaming anyone in here. Don't get me wrong. We have enough guilt on Yom Kippur. You don't need this. I just want to make the point that is where I think we've gotten to in technology. I've got some, 15, 16, 1,700 friends on Facebook spanning 40 years of friendship, and there are nearly 400 families in this congregation. Don't get me wrong, I got lots of texts. I got emojis. I got Facebook comments of happy birthday with little active memes and things. I got a few text messages from friends who were clearly holding a phone capable of calling me at the time that they thumb-typed their text, but literally, for the first time in my life, not one person called me this year. And I just wonder if I'm feeling like I'm missing out on the human connection, then I bet somebody else in here is as well. The Torah says it is not good for us to be alone. And it feels like the closer the world gets to our fingertips, the further it gets from our hearts. Even when we are out alone, we engage in a behavior that almost ensures that we remain that way. Loneliness is the new epidemic. We are missing out on our most elemental need as humans, connection and feeling as though we belong. I can't believe the amount of folks who self-isolate on their phones, earbuds so firmly in their ears as to block out any possible conversation starter or connection maker, like, did you see the game last night? Where did you get the shoes? Etc. Henry David Thoreau wrote, "City life is millions of people being lonesome together." As we are aging, we are finding ourselves in a peculiar society where it has become harder to meet people, harder to have success at dating, harder to actually enter into a spontaneous connection, even though we have more tools available to do it than ever before. We look at our teens and adult children and we puzzle at how they can spend hours on their phones and devices, texting each other, but never actually being with each other, even when they're in the same room. And here's the truly scary thing. Many people are just giving up, having fewer long-term relationships, meeting less, a steady decrease in face-to-face interaction. You get one, I can't even get one. He gets a phone call, I don't get a phone call. Good Lord. Have you noticed the irony about phones these days? It's like, checks in the mail. Thanks for that one. Harvard sociologist Robert Putnam, in his classic work, Bowling Alone, laments that we feel vaguely and uncomfortably disconnected. We have changed our environment more quickly than we know how to change ourselves. We want to live in a more civil, trustworthy, more collectively caring community, but we are lost at how to get there. Loneliness causes people to feel empty and unwanted. Isn't it ironic that loneliness leads us to crave human contact, yet this state of mind often makes it more difficult to form connections with other people? This is not a surprise to most of the people in this room. I think we've all noticed this dilemma that's been created over the last few years. I think most of us have a hunch that something's not quite in the relationship with the universe and our place in society. It doesn't feel quite as rooted or meaningful as it should. And we can't put our finger on it. We're just not sure why. According to a recent study, 6 out of 10 Phoenix residents feel lonely, which is on par, by the way, with the national average. But what's scary is that 80% of young people under the age of 18 report being lonely. And the same study found that social loneliness and social isolation impact our physical and our mental health. Some research suggests that chronic loneliness may shorten life expectancy even more than being overweight and just as much as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Why are we so lonely? Now, one reason could be the changing nature of work. Work is one of those key resources of friendship and community. Just think of your own relationship. Surely someone, or a few of you, your closest relationships, even perhaps your relationship with your spouse, may have started in a workplace. Yet, the connectedness of the workplace has been diminishing in recent years, right? From hopping from job to job or city to city or steady work as we've gotten into the gig business, if you will, as jobs have become harder to find and more remote, as people now work less in an office and more lonely in their homes. The Torah says it's not good for us to be alone. The Talmud tells the story of a rabbi who was a faith healer. All he had to do was lay his hands on someone and they were cured. Then he fell ill and he called for a friend to come and heal him. Why couldn't he just heal himself? Asks the Talmud. And it answers, because a prisoner cannot release themselves from prison. Sometimes when all you see most of the day is a glowing screen in front of you, it can feel like solitary confinement. We are the most social beings on the planet. We need human touch, the word of another, people, not pixels. That's why a real community instead of virtual is so important. One that keeps us tied together no matter what. A place, a people that we can count on. It's where we meet face to face and give each other strength. It's where people know who we are and miss us when we're not there. And if the song from Cheers is playing in your head right now, it's in mine too. Sometimes you really do want to go where somebody just knows your name. Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs wrote, "Community is a society with a human face. It's the redemption of the solitude." The root of the word synagogue is sin, not that kind of sin, S-Y-N. It's the Greek prefix that implies togetherness. But in Hebrew, a synagogue is a Beit Knesset, a place where people assemble. A congregation is where we congregate. Synagogues came to be not so much for people to find God, but for Jews to find each other. Why do we have the concept of a minyan, the Jewish rule that you must pray with a minimum of 10 adults? Because we want Jews to get together to say their prayers. Because most often, the answer to our most often felt, our most heartfelt prayer, the prayer from relief from loneliness, comes not from God, but from the person right next to us in prayer. Rabbi Mordechai Kaplan, literally the founder of the Jewish Community Center, the concept, the idea, arguably the most influential rabbi of the 20th century, the early 20th century, he said that the primary purpose of the synagogue is to combat loneliness and to weld Jews who live in the neighborhood into a conscious community. Note that he mentions neighborhood. The concept in many places that's becoming extinct. Earlier this week, I kid you not, I ran a report. We have 50 zip codes, members of our synagogue, representing our membership list. That means the function of the congregation today is as much unifying element as more important than it ever was even in Kaplan's day. Community is essential to Jewish existence. It is an essential protection against loneliness. Now, we've come to know each other pretty well over the last 12 years, and I've been privileged to be a rabbi during that time. And you know by now that at this point in the sermon, I'm going to have a call to action. Something I'm going to challenge us to work on and accomplish in this 5784 in the new year. A synagogue can accomplish many things, but perhaps what we are best at is connecting people to other people and fostering meaningful relationships. In the coming months, we are going to use that technology that we talked about at the beginning to connect us in real life. Sometime soon, you're going to get an email, because I'm not calling you. It's too many of you. You're going to get an email with a simple form. I want to fill in the details. We're going to match you with somebody in the congregation, and I want you to find the time, get together, have a cup of coffee, talk. And once you've done that, you can sign up again. And we'll even throw in some suggested topics of conversation if it's been a while and you don't remember how to do it. It's really that simple. But I have one condition. You have to leave your phone in your pocket or in your purse until the conversation is done. We're going to turn this technology, this inflicted loneliness, on its head with human touch, with human heart. We're going to use it to get to know each other better again. In all the days of creation, there was only one element that was deemed not good: human loneliness. For the Torah says it is not good for us to be alone. If the synagogue is the house of God, then we have a responsibility to do all we can to honor the message of this commandment, to combat and confront the loneliness that is so pervasive in the modern world. A story is told of a mother who sent her young daughter to the corner store for some milk. After a half hour had passed, the child had not returned. The mother naturally began to worry. After an hour, she grew frantic. In an effort to allay her fears, she got into the car and she set out to search for her daughter. And almost as soon as she pulled away from the house, however, she saw her daughter coming home towards her. And at the sight of her, the mother dashed from the car and scooped the small girl into her arms. "Where were you?" the mother pleaded. "Didn't you know that I'd been worried sick about you? It's been an hour. What were you doing all this time?" She said, my friend's doll was run over by a car. It got broke and I was helping her to fix it." And she said, "Were you able to fix the doll?" And the girl said, "No. So instead I helped her to cry." In human relationships, in a synagogue community, we can help each other to cry. We can celebrate life's joys and oys. We can see and greet each other face to face, not Facebook to Facebook. In a room filled with so many tonight, too many of us are feeling lonely and alone. And the Torah says it is not good for us to be alone. Each of us can do something about it. We don't need to feel lonely. Because in an age of loneliness, the synagogue, which is all of us, is an answer, if not the answer. We are the voice that answers when another soul calls out for companionship, and we can answer just like Abraham did last week when he said, "Hineni, here I am." Keni hi ratzon, may this be our work as we do Jewish in the 5784. As we say, Amen.